morning and welcome to Dog Talk. I'm Dan Camilleri.
And I'm Laura McKillop. We'd like to start by thanking Enduro for their ongoing support in bringing you our live weekly Q&A. Tonight we're fortunate enough to be speaking with Tammie Conroy from Trevoni Performance Horses and Working Dogs.
Tammie will be picking who she thinks has asked the best question of the night, and they will win a bag of Enduro high-energy food for working dogs with real kangaroo meat. How you going, Tammie?
How you going, guys?
Good, thanks. Yourself?
Yeah, good, mate, good.
Nah, that's great. And just a reminder with our new platform out there to anyone listening tonight, if you do have a question, just shoot it through on Messenger, through the Dog Talk, and Laura and myself will see those questions come through, and we'll ask them as they come up. Platform's a bit different now, so bear with us, please.
Or a text message, either way, just, find a way to make it happen.
Send a pigeon, make sure it's a quick one. It's all good, all right? What did you get up to today, Tammie?
We just saw some of our stud sheep this morning in Warwick, and then brought a couple of them home. So yeah, pretty casual day. Only had to do 20 or so of them, so that was good.
Have a little passenger in tow?
Yes, we did. My daughter Hayley's 13 weeks, so she was perched up in the shearing shed. She loves being in the shed. She sleeps through the whole thing until smoko time.
That said, we know she's still awake, so thank you very much for giving us some time today. New mother and all, I know it's not easy to be. Not that I have been a mother, but I know it's not easy, so thank you for giving us your time.
No, that's fine. That's fine. She's pretty good at this time of night.
It's another 4 hours when it becomes an issue.
Yeah. No, it's late afternoon she becomes grumpy actually, but nighttime, once the sun goes down, she's pretty good.
That's awesome. Would you like to start by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Yep. So I grew up in a little town called Carrara, which is west of Warwick in southeast Queensland. We grew up on what was considered a small sheep property. We ran about 600 ewes and lambs, merinos, on about 1,280 acres. When I was 17, my mum and dad sold the family farm and moved closer to Warwick and started to feedlot lambs instead. And I went to university. I finished uni. I did 2 degrees at uni, finished uni, moved around a little bit, did a bit of contract mustering, went up to Longreach, out to Cameron's Corner, and then ended up, I'm settled now at Coolmunda near Inglewood.
Wow. What did you study at uni?
I just played with horses. So I did my associate degree in applied science, majoring in equine studies, and then I upgraded that to a bachelor degree in applied science, majoring in equine science.
Wow. So what does that allow you to do then?
Kind of lets me walk into most jobs in the horse industry, apart from straight out vet. Most things I can go into, whether I want to do training or advising or any of that sort of stuff, breeding, that sort of thing. I haven't actually used it that much. I kind of just didn't know what to do when I finished school, and I didn't want to hit the real world yet, so I went to uni.
Bit of a vacation before you decided what you're going to do when you grow up.
Yeah, I learned a lot of bad habits, that's for sure, but I managed to get through.
Beautiful. And are you still doing a bit with horses, obviously?
Yeah, we've still got horses. My partner Rick and myself have, I don't know, there's 20 odd horses floating around here. We breed a few, break and train a few, but Rick broke his hand last year. He's a farrier by trade, and with Hayley arriving, we took a little bit of time off the horses and sort of dived a little bit more into the sheepdogs and trialing and that sort of thing.
Yeah, beautiful. We'll get on to that in a second. But I noticed there through your talking, and you had a heap on there, but it was all in Queensland still. Had you ventured obviously out of Cameron's Corner. Did you cross any borders at all?
Technically, I worked in South Australia.
Technically,
at Cameron's Corner, we went over the border. But apart from that, apart from traveling, like I've traveled to every state in Australia except Tasmania, and holidayed a bit overseas, but I haven't worked down into New South Wales or South Australia or anything like that. I'm pretty well a homing pigeon. I don't go too far.
And what did you do in Cameron's Corner? There's not a lot out there, right? Like I've been there myself, so I know it's Pretty scarce.
Yeah, we were mustering cattle and marking calves and that on Lyndon Station, which is the South Australian side, owned by the Ogilvy family. And we've also got friends on the Queensland corner, which is Omicron. That's owned by the Osmond family.
Beautiful. And these days, you mentioned your own stud sheep there, and in Inglewood now. What fills your day these days?
Well, I'm currently on maternity leave, but apart from that,
Besides Haley.
yeah, apart from that, I contract onto properties around here. So whether it be, I could be fencing, mustering, marking, drenching, all the fun stuff, weaning, mainly with cattle, sheep and goats, sorry, but a little bit with cattle, depending on what people need.
Have you got a preference which animal you desire to work with more?
No, not really. Merinos are probably the easiest. Well, I've found anyway, they don't bash you up as much and they group together. They don't hide as much. They're sulky though. Dorpers are pretty good, but like they want to survive, but they also want to hide because of that.
Yeah.
Goats are definitely challenging because most of the ones we work with are what they consider rangeland goats. So they're feral goats with a tag in their ear now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they can be pretty challenging, but also, you know, you definitely test your dogs out and your stockmanship skills trying to keep them together.
How long have you been doing that for then?
Since we bought this place back about 7 years ago, and then I was contracting onto when we went up to Longreach and Cameron's Corner, which was a couple of years before that. So yeah, probably 7 or 8 years now.
Yeah.
You ever thought of doing anything away from your animal stuff?
In the drought was the first time in my life I ever thought maybe I don't want to be a farmer anymore. We run a lot of our own breeders, breed sheep and that sort of thing as well. But yeah, that thought pretty quickly faded from my mind. I actually came home one afternoon and I thought, nah, I think this is it. I'm going to sell up and go do something else. I always kind of wanted to be a psychologist. I find the human mind pretty fascinating. And then one of my potty lambs come, like, you know how they do their little bounding thing across the house yard to me, and I thought, nah, I can't not be a farmer.
Animal psychologist instead, maybe.
Yeah, maybe might work better.
So mentioned there growing up, small block. Where did your dogs fit into this?
Mum and Dad had working dogs when I was a kid. We were, you know, typical rules. We weren't allowed near them. I got a border collie when I think I was about 10 or 11. He couldn't work to save himself, but he was very loyal. And then after that, I always wanted to have working dogs. So then I started to pick and choose what I wanted, and I picked a pup when I first moved out of home. Her name was Lil. She was border collie cross Kelpie, and she was my main yard and truck dog for years. She didn't do a lot of work until she was probably 5 or 6, and then she was my main dog for yard and truck work there for years. We actually put her down about 3 weeks after Haley was born, and she was 15 and a half.
Oh wow! Sorry to hear that, but geez, bloody good innings too.
Oh, great innings! Yeah, you can't complain. And she made it through till after Bub was born. So yeah, that was the main thing.
It's beautiful. What was it that sort of, other than your parents having the dogs, what sort of attracted you to them whilst you had the horses?
I always wanted a blue merle border collie, a female one. I had it envisioned as a kid. And then I couldn't afford one when I moved out of home. So I bought a coolie instead from a lady called Jackie up in the Atherton Tablelands from Allenby Coolies. And when I got her down here, she's all working bred. She's chocolate merle, so she's nothing like a blue merle border collie, really. And then I realised that because I lived at Gatton only on 8 acres while I was at uni, that she needed some work. So I started having some lessons with Dale Formosa down at Shawnda herding at Greenbank. And while I was there, I saw a bitch called Akuna Floss, and I fell in love with Floss, and I decided that that's what I wanted. I wanted Floss. So I put an order in, and in Floss's last litter, Dale gave me a call and said, I've got a pup for you. So I said, I'll be there this afternoon. I didn't even know if it was male, female, what it was going to cost. I just went and got it. And that was Shonda Pink, who is still my main trialing dog now.
Wow.
So once I got Pink, I then realized that I now have 3 working dogs, so I better start doing more with them.
What was it about Floss? What attracted you to her?
From my memory, and it could have been a bit fuzzy back then, but just that she was a very strong dog. Not strong as in rude and ignored people, but strong as in she had a connection with Dale, and she would do anything he asked. And if he could convince her to fight an elephant, she would. And I loved that commitment to her handler, that even if she maybe thought it wasn't possible, if he said it was, she decided it was. She was probably one of the first sort of trial dogs that I'd seen in the flesh too. So she had a lot more eye, a lot more finesse, that sort of thing, a lot more selective control. We'd always sort of just had working dogs that get the job done. But, you know, like as a kid, our dogs didn't have sides or anything. They pretty much had go back and come here and get out of the road.
Would you say Floss is still or is even your ideal sort of dog?
In terms of temperament, yes, my memory of Floss would still be my ideal dog. The only thing is I don't know now, after having a few different breeds and a few different types of dog, for the amount of work that I do plus competition, I don't know that the perfect one dog exists.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, like, if you said to me, like, I work in the sale yards, and if you said to me, would she be perfect for that? My answer would be no. But overall, her temperament and how biddable she was, I really loved about her coverage on stock, all that sort of thing. So I probably still aim for that grit in my bitch line. But in general, in just a working dog, possibly not.
Mm-hmm. What is that ideal dog then?
I don't think one dog can exist for everything that I do. But provided the dog is a dog that I like and get along with. And for me, the perfect dog is a dog with some natural ability, but most of all, that I can convince it to do anything I need it to, that it has heart and that it never quits. That for me is a huge thing. And when I look at my main working dogs, all of them have extreme amount of heart, and I don't know that they'd ever back down. And that means a lot to me, because when the going gets tough and I just need them to just give me a bit more, that they do that. So that's a big thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. Yeah. So is your team now made up of different breeds, or have you stuck with your collies?
We are mainly collie based, but I have a fair motley crew. I don't really rule anything out. I, in general, don't get along with Kelpies very well, but I do have one Kelpie here that belongs to my cousin. He frustrates the hell out of me. He's rude, but he can work stock like you wouldn't believe, and he's unbelievable on goats. So when all hell breaks loose and you've got no options left, you just send rip. I've also got a Huntaway bitch who's my main yard and truck dog, and she just blows the rest out of the water when it comes to that work. But when it comes to paddocks, if she's flushing stuff out, she's good, but otherwise she's best kept in the car. I bred from that Cooley as well that I had, Flirt, and I've got a couple of dogs out of her that I use a bit. One's actually was an accident by a wiry head cattle dog. Her name's Cisco. And I've also I bred her to a collie and kept a male dog who's one of my only male dogs in my team. And then apart from that, it's all collies.
I think I met Cisco at Ningen.
Yeah, the hairy one.
Yeah, I remember.
The one who's 72 days is not so great.
You are not racist at all, are you? You got a team of everything there.
Yeah, look, as long as it suits my work, I really don't care what it is or how big it is or what color it is. As long as I get along with the dog and it gets along with me and it suits my work, I'm not too fussed.
That's beautiful. Do you find how many dogs in your current? Do you want to tell us a little bit about your current team? You mentioned a
We
couple of dogs there.
Yeah, we'd have between Rick and I don't know, we've probably got 15 or 16 dogs in the team. So Flirt is my coolie. She's retired now. She will be 12 this year.
Oh wow.
She doesn't come out very often. She just pokes about and does her own thing. I bred her to a border collie and I kept a male pup out of that litter. His name's Hush. He's done pretty well in yard dog trialing. He's a bit full on for utility yet and 3 sheep, but he's a great work dog. I've got a Huntaway bitch called Sky, who's by a Huntaway dog that Les Fraser imported from New Zealand. And she's actually a lot smaller than a lot of the Huntaways I've seen. I always assumed that she was crossbred, but I found out since that she's not. She's only about 23 kilos. She's only small.
Oh wow.
I've got Cisco, who is the wiry head cattle dog cross coolie. Pink is my main paddock dog, so she's a border collie. I've got another young bitch that my partner gave me called Anderson Skunk, and she's just started working and trialing for me. And the heart that she's shown me at work, I can't wait until we can find that in the trial ring. I've got a couple of other dogs here that sort of come in and out. We've got a couple of young dogs here for training, and I've got another young bitch here that actually came out of Brisbane. She's coolie cross Kelpie. The people bought her. She was too much in the backyard with one chicken. And she's got the most heart out of any yard dog I've ever had. She'll just bowl through anything. She's only about 16 kilos. Her name's Kipper. Yeah, I think that's most of them. Rick's got a few here as well. So between the two of us, there's quite the horde.
There's some wild names in there. Who does the naming of your pack?
Flirt. Most of them I named. Cisco's technically Mum's dog, so Mum named her. Even though she works for Dad normally in the stock truck. Yeah, naming's a hard part. I like it to be short, but I hate it to sound like anyone else's name. So we sometimes have trouble with Rip and Kipper, because they hear Rip and Kip and think that it's the same. So yeah, and then sometimes I'm yelling at Rip and Rick thinks I'm yelling at him. So yeah, no, I know most of them. And I've got one other one coming up. Sorry, she's got the best name. Her name's Subwoofer. Out of my Huntaway bitch by Hush.
I love that.
She'll be my next yard dog. So I figured since she's just a little woofer, we'll call her Subwoofer.
I think that Hush for a Huntaway is a oxymoron. I think that's a great name.
Yeah, he's a collie, but he does bark. He's got a big bark on him.
Is it Hush for hush up, or Hush because he's just opposite to because he's all noise?
No, well, I originally wanted to call him Whisper, but I thought I didn't really like it. And then there's a song by the Pistol Annies called Hush Hush, which is kind of like, just sweep the moral of the song is just sweep everything under the carpet and, just pretend that everything's great while you're at church and that everyone's happy as Larry and Mum's not an alcoholic and all that. And yeah, I sort of took his name from there. I thought, no, that sounds better than Whisper. I can't yell that across the paddock.
Oh, I don't have anything to say.
Well, I had a question based on something there, but I forgot that after that. That was gold. I love it. And I love the mixed pack. Like I honestly do. Like just have a crack at everything. If something works. Like I think we've talked to many people that have got coolies, and now you've got, I'm assuming some coolie crosses there.
Yeah.
As well. Well, it's just really cool.
Thank you.
You're welcome. How about you doing much with cattle at the moment, or most of it is still sheep and goats, like you mentioned before?
No, most is sheep and goats. I've never had a huge amount to do with cattle, apart from when I went up to Longreach and out to Cameron's Corner. We've got a few of our own, but they're pretty quiet. So we're just starting to get into the cattle, sort of like we do a bit of work with them on horseback and stuff. But we're hoping to get into cattle trialing, learn a bit more and start having a crack at that too. And I just need to probably spend some more time around cattle, handling them, understand them a bit better. So before I sort of start that sort of thing, because I worry that I'll position my dog wrong without understanding the cattle and how they move and what pressures they move off.
Based on that, what you said about working with stock and going and seeing Dale and uni, do you ever jump into anything, or are you the type of person that likes to do a bit of research and educate yourself on something prior to jumping into it?
I research everything.
I thought that
even
might
if
be the
it's
case.
2 seconds beforehand and I have to Google it, I research everything and plan everything just about.
So,
what about different jobs that you might go to? Are you getting as much info as you can? You've already got a picture in your head of how you're going to work based on what dogs you're going to work, based on the stock, what your the person that's going to employ for that contract is telling you about the property and whatnot. Like, you're doing a lot of deep thinking about that prior to you getting to the job.
Not normally. The main things I need to know normally is whether I'm on a quad bike, a horse, or in a car, and what stock we're mustering. You know, are they feral goats that have never seen white man? Are they sheep that, you know, are really easy to move? But when I first go to a job that I haven't been to before, I always just take my best dogs. So I take my best yard dog, my best paddock dog, my best all-round dog. Rip, the Kelpie fella, he's really good at tracking as well. So if I think that it's something like goats or something like that where we might have to try and track some, I'll take him. So I just normally take my best team, and then you can sort of gauge after the first day whether you still need that best team, or whether you can maybe throw a puppy in the mix and let it have a poke around, or, you know, sort of how hard or how easy the job is.
And how are you finding these jobs? Like, obviously you mentioned there about like a new job. How is it? Word of mouth? Is it a bit of advertising? How do you go about finding your work?
Word of mouth. Most of them have come to me so far. It originally we sold sheep through David Friend, who's a livestock agent at the Warwick Sale Yards. He's retired now. And he got me a job on a Dorper place out here called Atunga, because he knew the man who owned it. And since then, it's sort of just been word of mouth, and people just ring us and find out if we're available.
Best way of advertising.
Yeah,
good job.
I haven't really advertised at all.
Yeah, that's awesome. Word of mouth's the best. Push telegraph, right?
Yeah.
So for someone that does a lot of research and everything into everything that she's doing, what are you looking for before you go and purchase a pup or finding a pup? Like, obviously, with so many different breeds and mixed sort of dogs, like, you're not focused on just paddock or just yard or just cattle. What are you considering before going and looking for something?
That's a good question, Laura. I got something at the back of that too.
The first thing I need to work out is what I want the dog to do. Mm-hmm. You know, do I need another yard dog? Is that why I'm going to look for a pup? Do I need another paddock dog? You know, what sort of job? Do I need a dog that just can do a bit of everything pretty well? In general, I prefer to run bitches. I don't run dogs. I get along with bitches better, and I cannot stand things peeing on my stuff.
That sounds like me.
Yeah. And Rick runs nearly all males, so we get along really well. In general, I want to know a bit about the parents, but mostly the pup itself. I don't write pups off just because the parents might not be the flashiest. I've sort of learnt that sometimes they just haven't had a chance. But I'll normally find out a little bit about the pup, get them to send me some photos, have a look at which one I think I might like, and then I go and meet them, because I can normally tell straight away whether I'm going to like them or not. And if I don't like them, there's no point me bringing it home, because I won't work it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Absolutely. And you find someone that thinks so deep, do you find that you talk yourself out of things sometimes because you think about overanalyze stuff?
Definitely.
How
Definitely.
how do you try and combat that?
I have tried to I found the easiest way to make myself do things I don't want to do is to just I commit to it. So let's say it's a trial, I just put my nominations in, or if it's a job, I just ring them and say, "Yep, I'm coming. I'll be there on this date." Things like that. So I just commit to it, because then my fear of failing is a lot worse than my fear of new things. So yeah, sort of from that, I then go, well, crap, I've actually got to train now because I've got a competition coming up, so I better go learn something.
Mhm.
Thank you for being so honest as well. I know we put a little bit of pressure on you here asking because we went down this path, but I know just how blatantly honest you are to stuff. But someone else out there hearing this might go that doubts themselves, that gets into thinking, and might go the other way. Hopefully, hears this and go, "Wait a minute, maybe I have committed to I've said I'm going to do it, so let's just do it." And you might change the mindset of a couple of people. So thanks for being so blatantly honest with that as well.
No, that's fine. I hope that people like I'm not a big flash dog trainer. I don't claim to be. I don't claim to know everything or much at all, really. But I think if you just have a go, like I never thought my dogs were good enough to dog trial at all. And then there's a man who lives locally called John Hoey, and at the Inglewood show, he runs what he calls a mustering bush dog challenge. And it's like a simple yard dog trial without too many rules. Pretty much the rules are go in and get the job done, don't bash your sheep up. And your dog doesn't, it's similar to a yard dog, but your dog doesn't have to stay in the race. They don't have to back. And he nominated me, and he came and called in at work every few days until I showed up. And then I don't know how, but I won it. And that scared the crap out of me. And then a bit of local banter meant that I had to enter it again, and I won it again the next year. And then from there, I thought, well, if I can do that with a hunt away, surely I can do something with the dog that's trained to trial. So we sort of started getting into short courses and then 3 sheep. So you really don't have to be the biggest or the best to start. You've just got to get that start, I think. Like I still remember one of the first trials that Rick and I went and watched. It was a short course, and I won't name the dog's name, but he was a very good dog, and to this day I still love watching him. He went in, ran a beautiful run. I think he was leading it, and as they let the sheep out, he flew in and he lugged on the side of one, and it ran across the yard, and it jumped out, and they yelling and screaming, and they pulled the dog off. And that was one of the best dogs. And I said to Rick, well, if that dog, who is experienced and a good work dog and a good trial dog, if he can do that and no one goes and kicks him out, like kicks the handler out, well, surely we can have a go and see what happens.
It's definitely a very welcoming sport for that, and I think you've just made that quite clear to a lot of people. But what is it that's probably gotten you guys addicted to it?
I think for both Rick and I, with horses, I barrel race mostly. I've done a bit of everything. Rick camp drafts. So when we started sheepdog trialing, we actually had a couple of pups with us at one of the trials we went to. We weren't competing, we were just having a look. And these men spoke to me and asked me a bit about my pup. And then someone else spoke to us, and someone else spoke to us. And then we're sitting down talking to these lovely people that are trialers and asking them questions and everything. And then I go home and I start Googling who these people are. And it turns out that it's, 3 or 4 of the best sheepdog trialers in Queensland. And you wouldn't know, like they're more than happy to help out. And it's not, at trials, we can have a run and come out and, say to some of these trialers that are representing Queensland or Australia, and go see them and just be like, oh, hey, mate, did you see my run? And how do you, I'm having this problem. How can I improve that? And they're more than happy to help. So I think that's what really got us hooked, was that people were happy to help. And I think with our access to so many properties with sheep, we've been able to help with supplying sheep for a lot of events. So I feel like we've probably got a bit to give back to the sport as well. So that's probably helped us get more involved too, because we actually get to see a lot of the backside of running trials and that sort of thing.
Absolutely. And have you had? So, do you want to mention any of your mentors that have really helped you get to where you are thus far?
Well, I must say that Dale Formosa did help me a lot to start with, and even to this day, if I'm having certain problems with Pink, I ring him because he knows the lines so well. So Dale was a big help, and he brought a lot of people into 3 Sheep trialing. Also, we speak a lot to Barry Knight of Knight's Working Border Collies, and Gary Barker. Gary Barker's got some very good dogs as well, and he's trialled for a long time, and quite often we'll ring them and speak to them. But at most of the trials, I pull up and have a chat to a lot of people trialing, and that's been a huge help. So probably Barry and Gary and Dale have been 3 big ones for us, but there's plenty of people, even on the weekend we went to the state championships at Allara, and, you can sit down and have a chat to anyone really, and they'll help you out.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you got a preference or a particular style or type of dog that you prefer?
I was thinking about this today actually a bit when I was driving home. I personally prefer a dog that's, when it comes to trialing, especially 3 Sheep, I prefer a dog that stands upright rather than claps to the ground. Only because I find them a bit easier to move than some of the dogs that clap. In general, as long as it's got a big heart and it can read stock, and every now and then they override me when they know that I'm very wrong, then that's pretty much it. Like I'd have probably 5 times in a trial run where Pink will do something, I'll ask one way, she'll do the opposite, and she just looks at me and I'm like, no, you were right, carry on. And I like that about her. I like that sometimes she goes, oh, I don't know that you're right on that one. And that means a lot to me, because that means to me that I haven't taken her instinct out of her when I'm training her.
Yeah.
Intelligent disobedience.
Yes. Yeah.
That is a very fine line.
Oh, yes.
Can talk about this for hours.
Yes. And it's all on the situation as to whether it's intelligent disobedience or just straight out disobedience.
So are you guys breeding a few of your own pups?
We've bred a couple of litters. We actually bred Rick's main male dog, Richie's Jinx, to Pink's daughter. And I put an order in for 1 bitch pup, and she had 1 bitch pup. So we called her Dolly, Dolly Parton, and she's 5 weeks now.
Right.
So I name my dog in general, if I can, after something that I really like. So Pink's named after the singer. So then it only seemed appropriate that I'd name her granddaughter after my second favorite female singer.
Is the next one Jolene?
Yeah, there's so many options now that we've got Dolly Parton if we have puppies. So we've bred her, and then the plan is to breed Pink to Jinx in October. I don't like to breed a huge amount of pups or a huge amount of litters. It's just if we want or need something. Pink's 7 now though, so I sort of she's only ever had 2 litters, and I sort of would like to get a couple more keepers from her before she's too old and ready for retirement. And Rick's little dog Jinx, I think, will make a really good cross. We don't breed a huge amount, but I'm pretty into genetic testing for a lot of my dogs, and when I tested Pink, it turns out that she's CEA affected. So who I breed her to very much depends on their testing, because I will not breed her to a carrier.
So you're having an affected dog, right? It just changes up your probability a bit more within the variation of your litter.
Yeah, well, it means that every pup's a carrier, which means that I also need to be
At
aware that,
least.
yeah, when I'm selling those pups, that the people need to be aware that those pups are carriers if they ever decide to breed from them. But I think most of all for me finding out she was affected, the main part of that was knowing that if something happens and her work changes, that I need to contemplate whether she has lost eyesight. So at least I know it's there. I don't just go, well, why are you not working how you used to all of a sudden? And that could be overnight. That could be she gets a hit from something. You just don't know yet. So we'll wait and see how it plays out.
And I love that you actually said in there when you bred that litter that you put in an order for your own litter as well. I did pick up on that.
Yeah, and then she only had one, and we didn't think she was in pup, and we took her and got her x-rayed, and they said, oh, we've got some bad news. There's only one. And Rick and I are like, oh, good. That's exactly what we wanted. And someone said to me, they're like, why do you only want one? And I'm like, well, I don't have to choose which pup I like because, that's always a fun job. And I don't have to rehome any because at the moment, the puppy market's hard. It's hard to sell pups. There's so many of them. So, yeah, she was born and I went, yep, it's a she. I like her. We're good.
In a few years, you won't have to worry about picking a pup or naming them because little one will do that all for you.
Yeah, well, Dolly's her dog, so we're trying to convince her that her first words need to be Dolly dog, and it's quite cute actually. If I put Haley in the pram and I let Dolly out, if Haley cries, Dolly goes and sits underneath it and whinges with her. So yeah, we've sort of tried to bond them together from the start. So hopefully, by the time Haley's 3 and ready to wave a stick around a trial course, Dolly should be just about ready to go with her.
And you mentioned there about dogs you like. You spoke about, I suppose, attitude or heart and desire there. Working through your own line, if there's something else you could put into your own line, what would that be? Or if anything at all? Doesn't have to be anything.
I would like a bit more versatility. So when I went down to Nyngan to the Utility Australian Championships, I saw a lot of dogs and mostly Kelpies. And I don't know if I can have too many Kelpies in my camp, but a lot of dogs that were very versatile that could do yard and 3 sheep. And you could see that those dogs could work in a variety of disciplines. I've got like Pink is a great paddock dog. Sky's a great yard dog, but you don't want them to cross over too much because Pink will bite when she's in close if she can't move them because she's all eye and no bark, whereas Sky is all bark outside, so she can turn things pear-shaped very quickly if she thinks she needs to. So, yeah, probably that versatility, which I have a bit in Hush and Rip in the Collie and the Kelpie, but I probably just want a bit more versatility that, you don't have to take a different dog for each thing. And I know a lot of people frown on just having, one dog for yards and one for this and one for that. But with the amount of yard and truck work I do, there's no point me having just a versatile dog. I feel like I really needed an excellent yard dog.
Mhm.
And I got that in Sky. But, yeah, I think a bit more versatility in my dogs is sort of where we're aiming.
Yeah, beautiful. And you mentioned there, like, you've seen those dogs and the versatility. And we spoke about other dogs before. Is there a dog that you've seen around the traps that you went, geez, I'd love to have that dog in my team?
We're actually discussing this today. I saw Adam James posted on one of the working dog discussion Facebook pages about, the top 5 dogs that you would have, if you could have in your team, who you'd have in your team. And I don't know that there's really anyone in particular that I look at and just think that, that is the be all and end all. In my mind, Flock was kind of that, even though she wasn't really a yard dog. But I don't think there's really a dog that I've seen that I thought, that is the be all and end all. If I paid more attention to Kelpies, there'd probably be some.
Very cool.
I was going to ask, where do you think you're going to find that versatility through your dogs?
We've started branching out a bit in our collie lines and looking at what other lines people have that are versatile, seeing what's out there in the cattle lines of things, what people who've got collies who can do utility and that sort of thing. We asked a lot of questions down at Ningen for if we saw collies that we liked, about what lines they were, just to try and bring in a bit more of that versatility into our lines, because so far we've only got lines that we know of, and most of those are sort of 3 sheep based lines. But we also have started to push our dogs outside their normal comfort zones and our comfort zones to see if they're any good at other things as well. So Pink, I've started doing a bit of utility with, and while she doesn't excel in the yard, she still does pretty well, and her outside work is pretty good. And then Rick's young dog Jinx, we've also started doing the same with, so starting to get him that he can work in a yard, for trialing purposes and that sort of thing as well. So I think, bringing in different lines.
So do you think it's just lines, or do you think it's training to some degree as well?
Definitely training, yeah, and exposure, because I sort of only ever thought of Pink as a 3 sheep dog. And a paddock dog. I never put her in the yards because, like I said, she will bite. She has a clean, hard nose bite. And that, at the back of a massive mob of sheep, that's all good and well. The back sheep work, the back sheep will move, but the front 400 won't. So when I took her to the Queensland Utility Championships, I was kind of hoping to just have a run, and then she made the top 15 for that. And that was very flattering. And then she made the Queensland rep team, and I sort of went, well, crap, maybe I need to train this dog to yard a bit more, because we're about to go to Ningen, and, you've got a 4-week-old baby and a paddock dog that's never backed or been in yards in its life, really. So we went and had some lessons with Errol Gill, who's a yard dog trialer up here, and he was really great. He helped out a lot. And then I sort of opened my eyes and realized that if I actually looked past what I think she's capable of, she's actually capable of a lot more. So I think so much of it is just because a dog's bred to trial or bred to work or bred to work cattle doesn't mean that you can't train him to do something else, and that he might not be the best yard dog in the world, but he could be a good yard dog and a great outside dog. So you just kind of got to, I think giving them the opportunity and training them all the same. Don't just train your dogs you want to work in the yards just for yards. Get them out and get them balancing and get them working elsewhere as well.
Absolutely. I think personally myself, if you want to do yard trialing and you're training a dog just for yards, you're going to be pretty disappointed, because you have to get them to the yards if you want to do a job.
Yeah.
Right. And where that versatility comes in, right?
Yeah.
And a bit earlier there, where we mentioned, you're talking about Pink and trialing, and we mentioned that intelligent disobedience. How important is trainability or having a biddable dog to yourself?
Having a biddable dog to me means everything. If I can't teach it things, then I'm not really interested in the dog. And that's where I probably struggle with the Kelpie fella I've got, is that he came to me at about 5-year-old, and he'd sort of run his own show a bit, which is great because he can read stock and move stock like you wouldn't believe, and he can get jobs done that my brain can't comprehend at the time. But at the same time, you also don't exist in his world most of the time. So that drives me insane, because especially when we're at work, you're not only working with your stock, but you're working with other people's stock and other people's dogs and other people. So when you're working elsewhere, you're constantly on display, and, it only takes for your dog to go the wrong way, or, they want to go clockwise, and you're going, no, we've got to go anti-clockwise because we're about to lose the whole mob into a creek or something, and your dog goes clockwise on you, and then you've lost your mob. So to be able to override what they want to do, and for them to be biddable and go, okay, yep, I'll try that, I'll do whatever you want, that for me is a huge thing.
Absolutely. And then you can go, sorry, Pinky, you did want to get that way, but thank you anyway.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And you mentioned there about breeding a bit earlier. We were talking a bit about breeding. Do you have a criteria that a bitch needs to meet for yourself to be able to breed from her?
Not really. No, not really. Just they need to have proven themselves a bit. And by proven, I don't mean they need to have won a trial or, be the best working dog in the world or whatever. But I just need proof that that dog has what I like in a dog, and that the male that I'm going to cross it to has the same thing. I pay a lot of attention to the males that I breed to. I watch them for a long time, and I look at them when they're in their camp with their people and how they are around other dogs and all that sort of thing, because I believe that dog aggression and that can be bred in as well. And with my line of work, you can't have dog aggressive dogs. I can't go to work and have my dog flog someone else's. That doesn't go down real well. So yeah, I think, yeah, I sort of, as long as she's proven herself in my eyes to my level that she's got, or she's going to have what it takes. Summer, which is Pink's pup that we bred, Dolly's mum, she was quite young. She's not quite 2-year-old. But we bred her mainly because her father was Rick Good Work Dog, and we lost him in a paddock accident. And she's the only one we've got of his line.
Yep.
So we sort of didn't want to lose that line. So we decided to breed her a bit younger than we normally would. But yeah, overall, as long as she's got what I think makes a good bitch, and that I think that she'll carry on something good. Most of all, it's genetic testing. I won't breed them until they're tested.
Yeah.
Bitch and dog generally. So that's a big thing for me.
How do you go about that? When you're looking at an outside sire, for example, do you just say, well, if it's not tested, I don't breed to it? Or do you ask or pay for it? Like, how would someone go about that?
If I had a particular sire in mind and he wasn't genetic tested, or his parents weren't, so you didn't know what he was, purely because I know that Pink is affected for CEA. If I was really sure I wanted to breed to him, I'd pay myself to have him tested, especially for that. But I'm not interested in breeding on dogs that are going to have issues down the track, like Pink's affected, so all her pups are carriers, but we haven't bred any of her pups to all of her pups we've bred to negative dogs, in the hope that if we keep doing that, then down the track none of them will be affected.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Absolutely. Sorry for that little mishap there. I forgot to put my computer on charge as we're talking, so it just flashed up at me. And I was just going to ask, like, obviously you're very passionate about it. All good there, Tam? Bub's not seeking your attention?
Yeah, and I think she needs a feed, but that's all right. Continue.
That's cool. Your passion there for testing your dogs there, does that come back to your horses as well? Like, is that something that you learned, like, when you're with your horses, you're passionate about, and the study you did? So now you've moved to, hey, darling, how you going? So now you've implemented that into your dogs?
Yeah, definitely. I have
Sorry, 1 sec. Gee, she's put a bit more on since we've seen her at Ningen too. She's grown already.
Yeah, she's huge compared to what she was.
Yeah, look at her.
We get
beautiful.
Yeah, see, in horses, genetic testing is a huge thing, and a lot of people won't breed without it. I really love coloured horses, so there's a lot of issues in pain horses that need to be tested for. Otherwise, you can end up with dead foals and all that sort of thing. So I think, yeah, it probably comes from that side of it, and I find genetics really interesting. So based on the, colour, based on, sort of breeding the coloured horses, I have sort of looked into what genetics carry on and how it all affects different things. And yeah, I find it quite fascinating. So it probably initially comes from that.
Mm-hmm.
Have you found that there now, and then with what you're doing now, is kind of steering you down towards the dogs that you actually look at based on knowing different lines or what you might want?
Yeah, definitely. And if I happen to find something in a line that I don't like, that's genetically passed on, I start looking back behind to see whether that's come from the mother or the father, start asking questions. And if it's come from one parent or both, and then quite often I'll make a decision based on that. Like if I know that a dog's line carries hip dysplasia, I'm not interested in breeding to those dogs. I really want a structurally sound dog at the end of the day.
No, I
that's-
totally agree with what you're saying. So I understand. Yeah.
and when when you have more than one pup in a litter, how do you go about picking your pup?
I pick the one that I like the most. I have no technique whatsoever. The last big litter I bred was subwoofer's litter. There were 11 in that litter.
Oh wow!
And I picked a chocolate bitch that I liked to start with. And then we went to the pub one night. I came home from the pub. I'd had a few drinks. I sat on the floor with the puppies. I put my scotch can down, and this black and tan pup ran up and sat down and was drinking the scotch out of the top of my can. And I thought, that's my dog. So that was Subwoofer, and I kept her from there. I changed my mind and kept her. And I didn't regret it.
Has she been sober ever since?
No. Sober
Love it.
Is there any advice to someone looking to purchase their first pup or, get into dogs?
I think people just need to have a go. Like, you don't have to have a world beater dog to have a go and to love him and enjoy his company. Look, if you want to be competitive, definitely you need to start looking into who's got dogs, watch some of the trial dogs and work out, what lines might suit you. Are you a softer person that needs a really biddable dog? Do you have no stock sense and you need a dog that overrides your knowledge of stock? Are you a very loud person and you need a dog that's going to cop that? And find someone who works dogs like you do if you want to be competitive. But if you just want to get in and have a go, it doesn't really matter if you've got Fido that's 6-year-old and been sitting in a townhouse all the time. We've got a good friend here who moved in and she did agility with her dog for 5 years. She hadn't really seen sheep. She brought her over and she just started working straight away. Like, it's in her lines to work, but she hadn't seen sheep. And at 5, she just switched on and she's had some beautiful work. So I think, just take your dog and go have some lessons. Like they say, most people don't need a $20,000 horse. They need a $1,000 horse and $19,000 worth of lessons.
It's pretty true.
Yeah.
Great advice. And we talk obviously a lot about younger dogs. Like, do you have a setup at home that you prefer, or are you doing a bit at work? How do you go about training your younger dogs?
We have it set up here. So we've got yards. We've got a 3 sheep course set up. And we've got paddocks and stuff set up that we can teach casting. We generally have sheep here suitable for training. I found that some of my potties have been excellent, especially for outside dogs, because my potties are big and strong and they know that if they stay beside me, they're safe. So, those dogs that are really excited about seeing sheep for the first time, your sheep are safe and your dog's safe, and they're not, the sheep aren't bashing into fences or hanging on the fence where the dog can't get around them. But a lot of our training is done at work. Just take them to work. All the basics of learning to ride a quad bike, learning to tie up outside the yards and not bark all day. In the shearing sheds, sitting there and watching and not harassing shearers and wandering around and, not annoying people at lunchtime, and just all those little basics. I think at work is really what makes your dog and what cements that bond with them too.
Yeah.
And how much time would you put aside for training, you think?
We don't necessarily put it aside, but Rick and I train every day just about. So the fortunate thing is that we're both interested in it and we both enjoy it. Rick's very competitive and he's a lot more devoted to training than I ever was. I kind of used to just go to events with horses and go, oh no, I sucked this week, and then not do anything different, and next week go, oh, I still suck. So it's been good living with him and learning, that if I actually train, I can actually get better. And we talk dogs a lot and talk about training a lot. And most days, if our dogs haven't worked, then we do a bit of training. We've got it all set up pretty well that it sort of only takes about 2 minutes to bring sheep in and have them ready that you can do something. Yeah. So it makes it pretty good and pretty easy. So it just depends on how much work they've had.
Do you think if it took more effort to get your sheep in and train, that'd probably put a dampener on it?
Definitely.
Yeah, especially now with Barb around, right?
Yeah, definitely. And we're pretty lucky with a few of the older dogs we've got that it makes it a lot easier. Like quite often, I'll walk down to the paddock, I'll cast Pink, and I'll go up and start setting the yards up. And then when I turn around, the sheep are just in there. She knows that we go down, we bring all the sheep up, they go in these yards. Same with, if we're breaking in sheep for other dogs and that sort of thing, that if I put Pink in the yard or Jinx, we'd know that they'll just stick around the outside and sort of ignore us and just keep the sheep off the fence so the puppy or the other dog can get between the sheep and the fence without the sheep just following the fence around. But I think definitely if you have your sheep close by or somewhere that you can pretty easily get them in, it definitely helps you to want to train that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And just makes things easier. And if things are easier and less stressful, well, everyone enjoys it and you'll keep doing it, right?
Yeah, definitely. And when people come to sort of train here or have a run through here, we just want it to be, easy and stress-free on them. So we're very fortunate that we have a wide variety of sheep that we have access to as well. So, if we say to someone, oh, what problems are you having? And they say, oh, 3 sheep trials, 1 sheep splits off and my dog won't pick it up. It'll just keep carrying on with the 2. So then we'll set that up to happen. So we know our sheep, we know if we've got certain merinos that'll run, we'll run 1 merino with 2 pets. We know the pets will stay with the people, and you encourage the merino to run and we get that dog to fix it again and again and again. So we're pretty lucky to have a variety of sheep so we can actually set up scenarios that are going wrong at trials and competitions and work and help those dogs to overcome that sort of stuff.
And are you guys helping like, how do I word that? Like obviously you have people coming there not for lessons as such, but as for help. Like, are you learning anything from that?
Yeah, definitely. We've been very fortunate to have a lot of friends come out. If someone just wants to bring some pups out, or maybe they just want to run their dog on a course that's not at a trial, that sort of thing. We've had quite a few friends come out, and yeah, it's been really good just to watch how different people do things too. Little parts that we're missing out on. We did have a friend come out before a trial, and Rick and I watched that when he finished, he would go and during his training, he would go and stop his dog, put him on the lead him out, take him back, let him go again and work him again. And he'd do that a couple of times. And that for us, by doing that, we've stopped the dogs from thinking that just because we catch them that the sheep work is over. So for those dogs that are hard to catch at the end of work, they keep going around the sheep and you can't catch them to call them off. It's been good for those dogs because they don't know whether they're going out and coming back in or whether they're finished for the day. So yeah, we've definitely learned a lot just watching other people and how their dogs travel. And we both find it really interesting working with other people's dogs and a variety of dogs just to see, what they can and can't do. My agility friend that I mentioned, her dog outside is very, very excitable, very excitable. Yet in the yard, she just quietens down and just works beautifully on her sheep. And there's no hyperactivity there at all. So that was a huge eye opener for us that just because we look at a dog outside and think that he's going to tear the house down doesn't mean that he's going to go in and cause havoc.
Absolutely. And we've been talking a little bit about trialing tonight. Look, when did you guys start trialing? Or how long have you been trialing?
12 months ago.
Yeah, wow. Yeah. And how do you think? Sorry, you're right.
I did those 2 Bushman challenges, which is the local trial that I said about, which was last year and the year before. So 2001, 21, 22. And then, just over 12 months ago, we both started trialing, and we dove pretty deep into yard and 3 sheep trialing from there.
You say it, you sound pretty addicted.
Yeah, we really enjoy it. I find it gives you a test to see how your working dogs are going as well. And it just gives you something to do on the weekends as well. Especially with us not competing on horses at the moment. So
and not just that, like 12 months and you're a state representative in the Australian Utility Championships, like hats off. Like that's a pretty big achievement. No, you're welcome. How has that made you a better stock person?
Yeah.
Or made you understand dogs a bit differently now since trialing? Or has it refined? Has it had no effect at all?
It's definitely refined our work. To be able to send a dog in a particular direction, pull him up anywhere, ask him to take 3 steps forward, 1 step to the right, sit down, take the pressure off, that for us has been a huge difference. Even just to walk, we do a fair bit of work walking 1 sheep, and the amount of times that has come up in work, like you might go out, muster a paddock, and you've just left 1 ewe behind, and beforehand you used to have to catch her, whereas now we can just walk her from having practice for trials, and that we can just walk that 1 sheep forward with our dogs and put her back where she needs to be. Or so it's definitely changed how good I believe our dogs are at work. Like it's improved their work.
Yeah. And I think you've mentioned just about every format of trialing tonight, except for duck trialing. I think you even mentioned 1 chicken there in the backyard. Wasn't you, but someone else. Yeah. What are your plans? What do you want to? Where do you see it going? What do you want to achieve?
I want a team of work dogs that work during the week and trial on weekends, and it doesn't matter what the trial is. I want to just be able to nominate and go, oh, there's a cattle trial on, we'll go to that, and take the same dogs to each one. That's the plan overall.
Sounds
beautiful.
Plan.
How far away do you think that plan is, or are you already there and just going to have a crack with the team you got?
Oh, we'll just have a crack. How bad can it go? We'll work with the team that we've got. I love the team that we've got. I think that they're doing really well for what I've thrown at them in such a short time. And, it's been such a learning experience from, hey, can you go out there and pull up 2,000 feral goats, to, if you could please control your emotions and not rip the throat out of that one in front of people, that'd be good. So that's, just to that sort of thing. Yeah. So I think, we'll just get that team together and go from there, and start with what we've got, and go from there.
Very cool.
Sounds pretty good.
And we spoke earlier, you mentioned about like how welcoming people were at trials. Obviously you got a massive passion for your dogs. What is it that's feeding this addiction now? Why are you trialing?
Because we keep getting so close to winning. Don't get me wrong, we've definitely come home with some good placings, and that Rick won the Encourage 3 sheep Queensland Championships last year, so that was a huge thing for us. And I've had a couple of my homebred dogs do really well at yard dog trialing, and like you said, I made the Queensland rep team for utility, which I never ever expected, and that was just a huge game changer to travel down there. But it's just addictive, and the people are really lovely. They're a great family of people, and that's the sort of people I want to be able to bring Haley up around. Like in a lot of sports now, the idea of just letting your kid be able to run around an event doesn't exist. Whereas with trialing, like you could even see it in England, that the kids and that they can just poke about, and someone goes, "Oh yeah, I saw your child. He was heading that way with such and such a kid," and you know that they're safe. And even at Alla on the weekend, like Rick and my runs were only a couple apart, so quite often, like I'd feed Haley or put her to sleep or whatever it may be, and then just hand her to someone and say, "Hey, can you just hold her?" And Rick would come out and take the baby, and I'd be like yelling at him across the arena, going, "Oh, such and such has her. If you can grab her on the way past." So just the family of it, and the people involved has been a huge thing for us to keep us going back.
In a couple of years, you'll only ever see her when she's hungry or thirsty.
Yeah, I know. Which at this point is all the time.
But right there, you kind of describe the same reason you trials the same for your dogs, right? You've got that dopamine hit of the thrill of the chase and wanting to keep achieving and achieving and achieving.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's real cool. We're not that dissimilar from our own teams, are we?
No, and it's interesting when you look at your dogs, when you've built a team over time and you sit back and look at them, how similar, even if they're different breeds or different types, how similar they might be and how similar they might be to you and what your values are and what their values are. I think that's, like if you're a person that's got a really high work drive, there's no point having a lazy dog. It doesn't work very well. So yeah, I think that drive, and the dogs seem to enjoy the trialing as well. It's something different. And there's so much finesse in a lot of trialing. 2 extra steps can be the difference between winning and losing. So that's, yeah, it's a big thing. Like they don't understand the win and the loss.
No.
But they just love doing it. I think like they get very excited about it. So
And I love that you just explained like their characteristic traits. They're just a reflection of us.
yeah,
You've nailed it there. Like you mentioned earlier, like you see someone that's loud, and you would say dogs are loud, and not necessarily loud in barking, but just their personalities are loud. And then you see there's people that are nice, soft, and calm, which I can't be because my heritage and my blood doesn't allow me to be. But those people, dogs are nice and calm and like really polite. And yeah, it's such a reflection of the people's dogs. I reckon if you hung around people's dogs enough without actually knowing the people, but you knew like the traits, and then you could have like a lineup. You see the dogs in a lineup of people, you could probably pick who owns what dogs, or be fairly close a lot of the time.
Yeah, definitely.
So I already know well, I'm hoping I know what the answer for this one is, but what do you think your best achievement, or what could be trialing, is so far, and then one, I suppose, away from trialing as well with your own dogs?
Ningen was definitely a highlight. Being selected to represent Queensland was, yeah, blew me off my feet. That's for sure. Because we were only going because it was nice and close to the Queensland Championships. It got changed to Inglewood, which is 20 minutes away, and I had a 4-week-old baby. So I'm like, oh, that'd be cool. I can go and have a trial. That'd be good. And then we made the top 15 and then made the rep team. So that really pushed me out of my comfort zone. And for the first time in my life, I went, oh crap, I've got to learn more. There's people relying on me. I've got to do better. I can't just go in there and go, oh, well, what will be, will be. I sort of had a bit more of a, well, I've got to go in there with as much as I can. But I think winning the 2 Bushman's challenges with Sky was a huge thing for me. I think it helped cement my love for trialing, definitely. And it reassured me that because all of my dogs are home trained, even if they're not home bred, I've had them all the ones that I compete, I've had since puppies. So to have my own home trained dogs do well was a really good thing. But I think overall my biggest highlight was getting 4th in the novice at, was it Carrara? Inglewood with Pink. that for me, that was a huge thing. Like, I remember going into the final going, oh crap, like I'm in a final, like there's 140 dogs in this and I'm in the final of 6. And then I'm looking at all the people in the final going, I can't beat them. There's no way I can beat these people. I can't. And then I actually looked and realized that most of them have been trialing longer than I've been alive. So coming 6th to those people wouldn't have been a bad thing, but I managed to get into 4th. So we went up a couple of places. So I was really wrapped with that. That was a game changer for me too.
And you've spoken a lot about like being around at different trials and meeting people that are very well experienced, and that, particularly within Queensland. What about when you mentioned Ningen a few times now, which is really odd hearing you say going down to Ningen. Like for us, it's going out, so coming down. What were some of your takeaways? I know you mentioned dogs and versatility, but what about handlers? Did you take anything away from watching some of the best handlers in the country there?
I think it really lifted our level of competition. For Rick and I to go down there and play with the big boys, it's made us come home and go, well, if we can play with the big boys down there, we need to come home and scare the hell out of the ones up here. So I think that for us was a big game changer, you know, just seeing the level that those handlers and dogs are at and listening, you know, even you look at how many championships that Gary White's won, and you sort of think, well, that's going to be us one day. Someone's going to say, wow, you know, there's that Tammie Conroy, I hope. Anyway, but that was a big thing for us was, yeah, definitely the level of competition, to step it up from just, you know, poking along at trials to going, well, you know, maybe we should get more serious about it. Maybe we need to, if we can't beat them, we've at least got to scare them.
Yeah. And,
Love it.
and how about the nerves? How stepping up so quickly, how have you gone to manage your nerves?
I'm really glad that Pink was beside me. Any other dog, I don't know that I would have coped. I have a very, very good, you've probably noticed, I have a very good bond with Pink, and she means the world to me. And she often covers when I can't cope, but I have so much faith in her ability that it doesn't, most things don't faze me too much with her. Like, I get nervous, but she just goes, oh, well, you know, I've got this. I'll do this bit. And I'm like, okay, cool. Righto. Well, when I can think again, I'll give you a hand. So, yeah, that's definitely, and I think it depends on your dog. Like, if your dog is an unpredictable dog, which I generally don't have too many unpredictable dogs, that makes it a lot harder too. Like, if you don't know whether your dog's going to, you know, run in and bite, or maybe he's not even going to see the sheep, or, you know, maybe he's going to do something horrible in the yards, or he's going to bugger off or something like that, then that would definitely not help your nerves. But I think having that faith, and maybe even having worked on quite a few places where, I don't want to say being judged, but you're kind of being judged by the person who's paying you at the end of the day on your work. So, you know, that's probably helped me out to sort of have a little more faith in my dogs, because if you don't have faith in them, you're sort of wasting your time.
Do you think your background competing with the horses has helped you learn to cope with your nerves from a younger age as well, that now you probably don't really even notice you're nervous?
It definitely has helped. And it's definitely helped in my ability to listen to what's required of me in that particular event and make it happen. 3 sheep, not so much. It's all the same rules normally. But when you get into a yard or a utility, you know, if your judge says to you, I want you to take all the chains off and put them over the fence, or you will lose points. You know, that's something really simple that you can do. And it doesn't matter how clever your dog is, how much training you've done. That's something that you will lose points for. So that competition background has definitely helped with that ability to compete. And I think as well, I was a very nervous and shy child. I'm still a very nervous person about things. It's probably why I research so much. And I think that pushing yourself out of your comfort zone is a great thing. And once you start, you kind of get a kick off it, so you just don't stop. But I think that having pushed myself out of my comfort zone with the horses was definitely a big thing. Like when I found out I was pregnant with Hayley, we'd just done the Australian Barrel Racing finals at Tamworth, and we were currently packing the gooseneck to head to the Queensland Barrel Racing finals last year. So, you know, for me, competing at that level and then going straight into dog trialing was probably the best thing I could have done, because I sort of went from, you know, being up, you know, trying my best against the best in Australia and Queensland to walking straight into trialing and just assuming that I should be able to manage to get myself to the same level.
So if there was any advice, to just one piece of advice that you probably haven't mentioned already to someone starting out, what would that be?
I think that I did mention it, but definitely find somebody whose style you like. And I don't just mean in the ring, but I mean out of the ring. Like if they have a really good bond with their dog and you think, oh, I like that, or, you know, outside you think, oh, you know, their dog's with them all the time, it's really loyal to them or something like that. Find someone that you look up to and you admire and just go hit them up and see if they'll do lessons. Even if you've got to pay for them or you don't pay for them or whatever, you might have something that you can swap them if you can't pay for it. You know, you might have services you can swap, things like that. I think, yeah, find somebody that you admire and you like their style and just go hit them up and have lessons with them and start there, because you might start there and then go, oh, well, maybe this isn't for me, and then move on to another handler or something like that. But most people in the trialing world will happily help you out a bit. And it could even be something as simple as, you know, go find the best in the sport and say, hey, I've got a run up later. Could you please watch me and give me some advice? And most of them will. You know, most of them are more than happy to. And I haven't actually found anyone yet that's told me to bugger off. So, you know, those sorts of people are the ones that can help you just work bit by bit forward, which you can't do in a lot of other sports.
Mm.
Oh, that's right. Fantastic advice there. And off the back of that, is there anyone that you'd like to see us sit down and have a chat with on Dog Talk?
I would really love to see some of the knowledge from the older three sheep trialers in Queensland. I know I talk about three sheep a fair bit, but as you probably know, our Yard and Utility Association up here is quite young. But some of you older three sheep trialers who've been in it a long time, the likes of Gary Barker, Barry Knight, Roy Potterkerry, Jeff Gibson, even Rhonda O'Connell, Jim O'Connell, those sorts of people, you know, there's a wealth of knowledge there. And if we don't learn it from them soon, you never know when it will be gone. And, you know, some of those people have been trialing for a long time and working dogs, and there's so much knowledge there that it'd be awesome just to hear their perception on things.
Well, please get in their ear for us.
I will.
Yeah, absolutely. That would appreciate that. And that's the whole reason that Dog Talk started, right? Was to be able to get some of that information out there and on record so people can take from it and learn from it one day. You know, so I'm glad you highlighted that. That's the whole purpose of us having these chats. Well, it wasn't even meant to be chats to start with, right? But that's a whole nother story. But yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But we really appreciate your time tonight, especially with little Hayley there as well.
That's okay.
But
She's a
Laura's not going to let you go that easy.
One last question. Would you rather fight one duck the size of a horse or 20 horses the size of ducks? And why?
20 horses the size of ducks. I understand horses, and I figure if they're the size of ducks, they can't hurt you too much. One duck the size of a horse would probably eat me, knowing my luck. I don't speak bird very well.
How long did you analyze and think about that one for?
Since I first listened to the first podcast that I listened to.
Well, there you go.
Wonder what
Might be time to change the question.
Pardon?
Might be time to change the question.
Tammie, thank you very much for getting on and having a chat with us tonight. We really appreciate your time. Especially having a young family there. Really appreciate you putting some time aside for us. Thanks heaps.
Not a problem. Thank you very much for asking me. It's very flattering. So hopefully it can just encourage some other people to just have a go, whether they want to just get into dogs, or whether they want to get into competing, or whether they just need to step up and go up a ring, up into an open competition or something like that. Hopefully people can just find the courage. Like, if I can do it, anyone can. Yeah, just have a go.
Awesome advice. And we'll finish up on that, because I don't think we can beat that. And to everyone listening tonight that's tuned in, I know it's a little bit different with our format at the moment, but thank you for tuning in tonight. Everyone listening back, thank you very much. And please remember, we learn every day, and a day we stop learning will be a sad one for all of us.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Good night.
guys.
Cheers.